Hey folks, this is the recap of the week legislatively here in Washington, D.C. So we're going to start out with a couple pieces of legislation. The first one is the Prove It Act. So what we have, generally speaking, all the time is just increasing government regulation. And the Prove It Act, all we're asking is for these regulators who are unelected and do what we call promulgating regulations to actually prove what the cost is to the businesses that they regulate. They never look at what the cost is. And my understanding is over the last 4 years alone, small businesses have incurred $1.7 trillion in additional costs. All that $1.7 trillion is then reflected in the prices that you pay, no matter what it's for. They've got to make a living. They've got to earn the money. And so they're regulated and it's translated to the prices you pay, which are higher and higher and higher. So we're just asking for the regulators, hey, prove what the value is of this regulation before you impose it on businesses and on the people, which is all of us that are paying for it. So I voted in favor of that. The other is the Crucial Communism Curriculum, I think that's what it's called, Act, which requires schools to teach about communism. Now you have a hard time finding somebody that's more anti-communism than me in the legislature in Pennsylvania or in the country for that matter. But there's another side to this equation, which is should the federal government be requiring curriculum for the states? If Governor Shapiro wanted to introduce this legislation and I was a state legislature and in the state legislature, I would surely vote for it. But the question is this a federal job? Is this a federal responsibility? It is not. Read the Constitution. I'm sure you have too. There's nothing in the Constitution about education. And so while I agree with the premise of the bill, it's just I don't agree with the federal government being involved in the curriculum. We've seen the problems with that before. I don't think it's good when either side does it. So I voted no on that. We also sent a letter to FEMA, as you might have heard. FEMA was doing disaster relief and they surveyed different people's homes, and they were not surveying or not showing up at homes that had Trump signs or Trump paraphernalia. Look, when you're in a disaster, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, don't vote at all. You pay taxes. Our government's not supposed to be making value judgments on who we serve based on their political leanings. And so I and the committee chairman, Sam Graves of Missouri, sent a letter to FEMA requesting an independent investigation into these practices. We got to get to the bottom of that and restore confidence in the American people that the government's not picking and choosing winners and losers based on their political affiliation. We also had a hearing this week with the Census Bureau. The head of the Census Bureau came in and I asked him a lot of questions, but I was appalled to find out, look, the Constitution's very clear. We count all people in the country. But for apportionment, the Constitution is also clear that you should be a citizen of the country and for voting and apportionment. So what's apportionment mean? For how many people are elected to Congress. So if all people are coming illegally or moving into one district, then that creates a whole new congressional district for purposes of apportionment by people that aren't here legally, have no nexus to the country, and aren't citizens, but yet are getting to make decisions on behalf of the country. That's not appropriate, and it has appeared that the leader of the Census Bureau wasn't aware of the constitutional language and is happy to be counting people that are not here legally for purposes of apportionment and for purposes of voting. And I think that was made clear in the hearing. And then finally, we had a meeting with what's called the Doge Committee, which is Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are looking to make government more efficient. And so the legislature had a meeting. It was a bipartisan meeting. And we talked about things that we can do collectively with the administration, the incoming administration, and the legislature to make our government more efficient. And one of the things that came out of it, I'm proud to say, is my work on what's called the Use It Act. As you probably know, we did a survey right here in Washington, D.C. Of the 24 headquarters buildings we surveyed, 17 of them had less than 25% occupancy. So the vast majority of those buildings that we pay for, we pay the leases, we pay the heat, the air conditioning, the maintenance, had less than 25% of the people showing up for work. And so that's a place where we can find some efficiencies. I'm happy to report that that bill made it out of committee, made it through off the House floor. It now sits in the Senate. And so that's one of the ways that we can find efficiencies. And those were highlighted in the conversations that we had with Mr. Musk and Mr. Ramaswamy. So I'm thinking that that's a bipartisan issue, because it obviously is. And there are going to be opportunities here for us to get some wins on some things that we agree with and get some efficiencies so we can use your tax dollars more wisely. So that's kind of a recap on the big issues of the week. Stay tuned. We're back in next week. So over the weekend, it is the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And I just hope that you would find it appropriate to take a moment to think of our service members that lost their lives in that attack that brought us into World War II, and the cost and the price, the dear price of freedom and the great country that we live in. So until next week, I hope you have a great weekend. Be safe out there. God bless you.